Good day to you all and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chokbe Madichie. In today's video, we want to learn how to use Eviews to estimate a panel GMM, panel generalized method of moment in dynamic form. Okay, so we can say that we want to learn how to estimate a dynamic panel data regression using within the framework of generalized method of moment. Now, generalized method of moment is an instrumental variable regression. Okay, basically used when we are not sure of the distribution of the dependent variable, and of course when there is likelihood of exogeneity issue in the analysis. Now, I want to also point out that the GMM has a combination of OLS and two-stage least square. So one can safely say that two-stage least square is a special subcase of OLS. I mean of GMM. Okay. In estimating panel generalized method of moment, we distinguish three types of variables. Okay, we know of endogenous variables, we know of exogenous variables, and we also know of instrumental variables. Okay, it's very important. These instrumental variables, they are very important to know, and one of the greatest challenges most researchers face is choosing the right instrument. Okay, now we say that the core issue here about panel data analysis is a situation whereby the supposed exogenous variables may be weakly exogenous, meaning that the variables may be correlated with present and past realizations of the error term, and because of that it poses a serious problem of inconsistent estimates when we ignore such distribution. Now, what do we do? Like I've mentioned before, now we talk about exogenous variables, we talk about endogenous variables, we talk about instrumental variables. Another thing to note also is that the exogenous variables, or the among the regressors, we may also have purely exogenous variables, endogenous variables, and predetermined variables. Now, predetermined variables are the lagged value of the dependent variable, while purely exogenous variables may be variables in the regression that are purely exogenous. Okay, endogenous variables are variables that are correlated with the error term, and of course we should also remember that this is a dynamic model whereby the predetermined variable, which is the lagged value of the dependent variable, is predominantly correlated with the error term. Okay, now what do we do when we are faced with this kind of situation? The first thing to do is to go into the search for instrumental variable, the instrument. Okay, how do we determine the right instrument? An instrumental variable should be purely exogenous. Okay, and it must be relevant such that it greatly determines it greatly influences the regressor in question. Okay, the regressor in question. For instance, one may be interested in looking at how investment affects the economy. Now, if you are looking at how investment affect the economy, you may have to look at what variable directly affects investment but is not included in the analysis. The variable that we can theoretically, because this is a theoretical issue now, theory may have to guide you in selecting the instrument. Now, if you look, you find out that theoretically the major determinant of investment is interest rate in conventional economies. So the major determinant of investment is interest rate. Now, if you are looking at impact of investment on economic growth, you may have to see interest rate as the instrument in order to be able to instrument investment. Because investment can also be is an endogenous variable. Okay. Now, another way to look at instrumental variable is if you are studying the impact of what will I call it? Impact of uh, uh, cigarette smoking. Okay, if you're looking at the impact of cigarette smoking on the health of the smoker, now how do you choose uh, instrument for cigarette smoking? You may have to look at what actually drives somebody into smoking cigarettes. Now, a lot of things can make somebody to begin to smoke cigarettes. It may be as a result of depression. Depression can cause somebody to begin to smoke cigarettes or take alcoholic. Okay, now that is actually how to theoretically search for instrumental variables or instruments. But most times this is not actually a very sure bet. Okay, it's not actually a very sure bet in choosing instruments. Now, we have two types of instruments. We have internal instrument and external instrument. Now, a lot of people have argued that internal instrument is the best instrument. Now, when I say external instrument are instruments from the data we are working with, such as lag values of the regressors. So, some people have argued that the best instrument is internal instrument. So when you say external instrument, just like I've explained now, if you are looking at the impact of investment on economy, you may have to instrument investment with interest rate, and there are many other variables that can affect investment. Okay, now first feature of an instrument is purely exogenous. It must be purely exogenous and it must be relevant in influencing the value of the independent variable in question. Okay, now having said that, it means that the instrument for this analysis must come from within. Okay, they must come from within. Now, what are we trying to do here? This work file is already ready, and we are looking at how some of these variables, like I'm clicking on them now, how they affect this one. Okay, this one is the inclusive growth variables. We want to look at how foreign aid, financial development, and asset to the city affect inclusive growth in a panel setting. So here we have a panel of 48 sub-Saharan African countries. This is the ID. Okay, this is country ID. You can see we have it up to 48. Okay, Zimbabwe is the last country here. This is arranged in alphabetical order. Okay, 48 sub-Saharan African countries. So the cross-sectional ID here is 48. So the N is 48, while the date is what? While the date is from 2000 to 2018. 2018. So we have 19 as the period. So T is 19 and N is 48, and of course we have large N and small t, which means that GMM is a suitable estimator. Okay, what do? We click on the variables that we have here. Okay, sorry, we click on the variable starting from the dependent. Okay, we open them as equation. Now remember that we are working with generalized method of moment. We click on generalized method of moment. Now remember that the procedure is dynamic panel. Okay, GMM. So what we are going to do, first of all, we specify the instrument, and we say that instrument must be the lag values of the regressor. So lag values of the regressors. Okay, so I copied and pasted and now adjust them by lagging them by 1 period. Okay, so these are lag values of the regressors, and of course there's a way you can actually test whether these instruments are the right instrument by using what is called first stage regression. Okay, first stage regression is a way of regressing the regressor on the instruments. Okay, regressing the regressors on the instrument and observing the arrow square FO statistic and of course the Durbin-Watson statistic. Okay, now what do we do at this point? Remember that we are going into GMM, and GMM can take the form of difference GMM. It can take the form of system. But here in Eviews, we have the option of orthogonal and the option of difference. So difference GMM is used to remove the problem with individual effect. So individual effect is actually controlled in fixed effect regression, but when you do fixed effect regression, you run into the problem of creating variables that are correlated with the error term. Okay, because of the demeaning operation. Now when you demean the model following the fixed effect procedure, you create additional variables that will correlate with the error term, which causes endogeneity issue. Now in order to remove the individual effect, okay, in GMM setting, we have another method which is by difference, in the one that is called difference GMM, and difference GMM is credited to Arellano and Bond, popularly known as AB 1991. So now because of that, we go into the setting up the dynamic panel wizard. Okay, dynamic panel wizard will help us to convert this model into a dynamic panel model and now set the transformation we are going to use. The transformation can either be difference transformation, it can be orthogonal transformation. Now we go into the setting the wizard. Okay, here we say from lag 1 up to lag 1. So we want to set it to lag 1. He said include dummy. We say no. We continue. So here we want to first of all go for difference, and in return we can also try orthogonal deviation. Now automatically the Eviews will create an instrument for the predetermined variable, which is the lag value of the dependent variable, and here the instrument is lag 2 of the dependent variable. Okay, and we have reached this point. You just continue to click OK, next. Okay, now we leave it at two step and leave it and follow one step. You can follow 2 step, but by default we start with 2 step GMM. We click next. So here we have specified the dynamic structure and we click finish. Okay, you can see that a variable has been added to the regressors. The lag value of the dependent variable has been added, and if you go to instrument, an additional instrument has been added also, which is the lag 2 of the dependent variable. Okay, and the panel here is difference. Remember that we clicked on difference here, and difference here is to remove the individual effect. Okay, here we can now click OK for first difference GMM, and the result is out here. Okay, the result is out. You can see that you can see the coefficient. You can see all the necessary items of this result. Okay, now remember that our major concern here is to learn this process in Eviews. Okay, for you can get a lot of papers to read and gain the prerequisite theoretical knowledge on panel generalized method of moment. Okay, now if we now want to re-estimate and go for orthogonal deviation, you can click on what is it called? You can click on estimate again, go to panel and remove difference, and now click on orthogonal deviation. Okay, instrument remains the way as choosing, and we can now click OK. So you can see the result, how the result looks like. Okay, you can see the result now. Is there any similarity between this result and the one obtained from the different GMM? Here all the coefficients are positive except this one. The other one, can we say the same thing? All the coefficients are positive except this one. So we can see consistency of result. Okay, can see consistency of results. And now if you want to test for, what is it called, if you want to test for serial correlation, you can go back to the panel option and click on always keep GLS and IV weight. Okay, that will enable you to be able to estimate and be able to do this test. Okay, Arellano and Bond serial correlation test. So you can see that at AR2 there is no serial correlation at AR2, so the result is actually okay. Okay, and this is just the part 1 of this video. I'm going to make an additional video for choosing between difference and system GMM in Eviews. Okay, thank you very much for watching. If you find this video useful, kindly subscribe to my channel and